Welcome back to the channel, coin collectors and treasure hunters. Today, we are taking a close look at the Australian 20-cent coin dated 2020, especially a piece showing a rust brown appearance on both the front and back. Could this ordinary-looking coin be worth more than its? Let's explore its history, specifications, condition. The Australian 20-cent coin is one of the well-known denominations of Australia's decimal coinage. The denomination was introduced on 14 February 1966, and its famous reverse features the platypus, designed by Stuart Devlin. The 2020 standard circulation issue continued this traditional design. The Royal Australian Mint records a circulation mintage of approximately pieces for 2020. The coin is made from, it has a circular shape with a milled edge, weighs about, and measures approximately in diameter. On the obverse is the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II with the inscriptions identifying Australia and the year 2020, while the reverse shows the Australian platypus. Now let's talk about the most interesting part of this particular coin, the rust brown appearance on the front and back. Because this is a copper-nickel coin, a brown or darkened surface does not automatically mean that the coin is a rare error. It may be the result of environmental exposure, surface oxidation, storage conditions, staining, or other forms of toning. Collectors should therefore examine the coin carefully before assuming that unusual color means a major premium. The 2020 issue itself is not considered a scarce circulation date, simply because it is from 2020, with around circulation pieces produced. Many examples remain available. Current online price guides also show that ordinary circulated examples generally trade close to, while high-grade mint state examples can bring considerably more. One current guide lists approximately 4 and around, although these figures are guide values rather than guaranteed selling prices. For a coin with the rust brown circulated appearance described here, the realistic collector value is usually much more modest. A normal, circulated 2020 Australian 20-cent coin may be worth around depending on condition and buyer interest. If the brown coloration is attractive, natural-looking, and unusual, a collector might potentially pay somewhat more. But there is no automatic high value simply because of the color. If the coin has a genuine mint error, however, the situation could be very different. Collectors should look closely for unusual doubling, off-center striking, major die problems, missing design details, abnormal metal composition, or other verifiable minting abnormalities. A simple brown surface or discoloration should not be confused with a mint error. Collector demand for Australian decimal coins remains strong among people building date sets, Australian circulation collections, and high-grade registry collections. The biggest premiums generally go to coins that combine scarcity, excellent preservation, attractive appearance, and a documented variety or error. Professional grading can also make a difference when a coin is genuinely in exceptional condition. So, what is this 2020 Australian 20-cent coin worth today? For the rust brown circulated example described in this video, a reasonable starting estimate is around $1.30, 0 to $1.60, 0 with the possibility of a higher price if the coin has an especially attractive appearance, an unusual and desirable variety, or a confirmed mint error. For comparison, ordinary high-grade mint state examples can reach substantially higher guide values, but those prices apply to exceptional grades rather than typical brown, circulated pieces. The most important advice for collectors is simple: do not clean the coin. Cleaning can permanently damage the original surface and may reduce collector appeal. Instead, keep the coin in a protective holder and examine both sides under good lighting. Check the date, lettering, platypus design, edge, and surface carefully. If you believe the coin has a genuine minting error, consider having it examined by an experienced numismatist or professional grading service. Remember, coin values can change depending on grade, eye appeal, rarity, demand, and actual completed sales. A price guide is useful for research, but it is not a guarantee that every coin will sell for that amount. So, if you have a 2020 Australian 20-cent coin with a brown or unusual surface, don't throw it away. Take a closer look. It may simply be a normal circulated coin, but examining coins carefully is one of the most exciting parts of collecting. Next up, today we are taking a close look at an Australian 20-cent coin dated 2017, particularly a coin showing a rust brown or heavily toned appearance on both the front and back. Could this ordinary-looking coin actually be rare or valuable to collectors? And what could a 2017 Australian 20-cent coin in this condition be worth in today's collector market? The Australian 20-cent coin has a long and interesting history. The denomination was introduced when Australia changed to decimal currency on 14 February 1966. The standard reverse features the famous Australian platypus, a design created by Stuart Devlin. The coin's obverse carries the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II for the 2017 issue. The 2017 Australian 20-cent coin was produced for normal circulation, and the Royal Australian Mint records a circulation mintage of approximately. This means that the standard 2017 issue is not considered a low mintage coin simply because of its year. In terms of composition, the Australian 20-cent coin is made from it weighs approximately, measures about across, and has a milled edge. These specifications are useful when checking whether a coin is genuine and when comparing it with other Australian 20-cent pieces. Now let's talk about the most noticeable feature of the coin in today's video: the rust brown appearance on the front and back. Technically, because this coin is copper-nickel rather than an iron-based metal, brown coloration is generally better described as toning, staining, discoloration, or surface environmental damage rather than ordinary iron rust. For collectors, condition is extremely important. A coin with attractive original surfaces, strong details, and little evidence of wear can be considerably more desirable than a heavily damaged example. On the other hand, brown discoloration, corrosion-like spots, scratches, cleaning marks, or chemical damage can reduce collector appeal. So is this 2017 Australian 20-cent coin rare? The answer depends on what we mean by rare. The normal 2017 circulation issue had a substantial mintage, so the date itself does not make it a rare coin. However, collectors should always examine a coin carefully for unusual mint errors, varieties, striking problems, or exceptional preservation. A genuine major error can sometimes be much more interesting than the normal date. There were also special 2017 Australian 20-cent collector issues associated with the Legends of the Anzacs program, including designs representing military medals. Those are different from the ordinary circulating 20-cent coin and should not be confused with the standard platypus design. Now let's discuss the market value. Based on current published price guide information, or only a modest premium, depending on condition and buyer demand, higher-grade mint state examples can bring more. One current price guide lists approximately with substantially higher guide values for exceptionally high grades, such as for a rust brown, stained, or heavily discolored circulated example like the one described here, a realistic collector market expectation is usually much lower than the prices for brilliant, uncirculated, or high-grade examples. In $1.30, $0, a typical circulated coin may be worth roughly $1.50, $0 to $1.80, $0, although actual selling prices can vary with condition, exchange rates, buyer interest, and whether the discoloration is considered attractive, natural toning, or damage. This should be treated as an approximate market range rather than a guaranteed selling price. If the coin has a genuine mint error, however, the situation can change dramatically. For example, a major off-center strike, significant die error, wrong planchet, or another authenticated minting error could attract specialist collectors and potentially command a much higher price. But discoloration by itself should not be assumed to be a mint error. One important tip is never to aggressively clean a potentially collectible coin. Polishing, scratching, chemical cleaning, or rubbing the surface can permanently damage the original finish and may make the coin less desirable to collectors. It is usually better to preserve the coin in its existing condition and have a potentially valuable error examined by an experienced numismatist. So, what is our final conclusion about the Australian 20-cent coin from 2017 in rust brown condition? It is an interesting modern Australian coin, but the 2017 date alone does not make the standard circulation issue rare. With a mintage of about ordinary examples are relatively common. The brown coloration may make the particular coin visually unusual, but it does not automatically increase its value. For a circulated example with significant discoloration, the realistic value is generally close to, while exceptionally high-grade examples or genuine mint errors can be worth considerably more. So, if you have a 2017 Australian 20-cent coin at home, don't throw it away. Check it carefully, compare the design and condition, and look for unusual minting characteristics. Sometimes the most interesting discovery is not the age of the coin, but an unusual error or variety hiding in plain sight. Next up, today we are taking a close look at an Australian 20-cent coin dated 2006. The coin we are discussing has a rusty green appearance on both the front and back, which makes its condition especially interesting to collectors. The Australian 20-cent coin has been part of Australia's decimal currency system since 966. The standard design features Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse and the famous Australian platypus on the reverse. The 2006 circulation issue was struck in copper nickel, containing it weighs about and measures roughly across. For the 2006 circulation issue, approximately coins were produced. Because such a large number entered circulation, the normal 2006 Australian 20-cent coin is generally not considered a major rarity. However, collectors can still find the coin interesting when it has an unusual appearance, an identifiable minting variety, or an exceptionally high grade. Now let's talk about the condition of the particular coin shown in this video. The rusty green coloration on the front and back is an important feature to examine, but discoloration alone does not automatically make a coin rare or valuable. In many cases, green or brown surface changes can be caused by environmental exposure, oxidation, contamination, storage conditions, or other forms of surface deterioration. Collectors normally distinguish these conditions from genuine mint errors. The obverse shows the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II with the inscriptions identifying Australia and the year 2006. On the reverse is Stuart Devlin's well-known platypus design with the denomination of 20 cents. These are standard features of the Australian 20-cent series. So, what could this 2006 Australian 20-cent coin be worth today in $30,000? Current published collector price guides show that ordinary 2006 circulation coins generally have relatively modest values. One recent guide lists approximately in lower circulated grades, around in better circulated grades, and around in very high grades, while another market guide gives values around depending on condition. For a coin with the rusty green front and back appearance shown here, I would not automatically assign a high rare coin value. If the green coloration is environmental damage rather than a recognized minting error, the collector value may remain close to the normal circulated value, potentially around $1.50, $0 to $1.80, $0 depending heavily on the actual grade, eye appeal, and buyer interest. A genuine, professionally confirmed mint error or an exceptionally high-grade example could be worth considerably more. This is an important lesson for coin collectors. Unusual appearance does not always mean extreme value. Before paying a large amount for a colorful or damaged coin, check the date, design, mint characteristics, condition, and whether the unusual feature is actually a documented variety or mint error. If you have a 2006 Australian 20-cent coin, examine both sides carefully under good lighting. Look around the Queen's portrait, lettering, rim, and platypus design for unusual doubling, die cracks, chips, missing details, or other characteristics that might indicate a genuine minting variety. Do not clean the coin, because cleaning or polishing can reduce collector appeal and may remove important surface evidence. The 2006 Australian 20-cent coin is therefore an interesting collectible, but the standard circulation issue should not be assumed to be a highly valuable rare coin simply because it has green or rusty coloration. The real value depends on authenticity, condition, variety, and what collectors are actually willing to pay. So, if you have one of these coins sitting in an old collection, don't throw it away. Take a good look at both sides, compare it with reliable coin references, and preserve it in its current condition until you know exactly what you have. Next up, today we are taking a closer look at an Australian 20-cent coin dated 2004. At first glance, this coin may look like an ordinary piece of Australian pocket change, but collectors often pay close attention to older circulating coins, especially when the coin has attractive condition, a desirable variety, or an interesting production history. The Australian 20-cent coin has a long history and features one of Australia's most recognizable native animals, the platypus. The reverse design was created by Stuart Devlin, while the obverse features Queen Elizabeth II. The 2004 issue continues this classic Australian design and was produced for circulation by the Royal Australian Mint. The Royal Australian Mint lists approximately standard 20-cent coins for 2004. The 2004 Australian 20-cent coin is made from copper nickel with a composition of approximately. It weighs around and measures roughly across. These specifications make it a substantial and easily recognizable Australian decimal coin. One particularly interesting feature of the 2004 issue is that collectors may encounter different obverse varieties. The commonly circulated version is known as the small head variety, while a large head variety is associated with Royal Australian Mint sets. Numismatic references also identify a relatively low mintage 2004 large head circulation/set variety, making variety identification especially interesting for collectors. Now let's talk about condition. If your 2004 Australian 20-cent coin is in very fine condition, it should still show clear major design details while displaying noticeable evidence of circulation. The platypus, lettering, date, and portrait should remain identifiable, although the highest points of the design will normally show some wear. Small scratches, contact marks, and surface dullness can also be expected on a circulated coin. When it comes to value, it is important to be realistic. A normal 2004 20-cent coin is not automatically worth a large amount, simply because it is nearly 2 decades old. Current online coin references place ordinary 2004 examples at relatively modest values, with one collector-based reference listing about the issue in an XF-level grade. Another catalog gives a value around for a comparable circulated grade. These figures are only guides, and the actual amount a collector is willing to pay can vary according to condition, variety, eye appeal, and demand. For a genuine very fine example of the standard 2004 issue, a reasonable collector market expectation would generally be around, with exceptionally attractive examples potentially bringing somewhat more. Is only 20 Australian cents, so a collector premium is possible, but the standard circulated version should not normally be described as a high-value rare coin. However, there is an important reason to inspect your coin carefully. The 2004 issue has documented varieties, including the small head and large head types. If your coin turns out to be an unusual variety, or if it has a genuine mint error, its value could be significantly different from that of a normal circulated example. Professional authentication is recommended before assigning a substantial value to an unusual coin. Collector demand for this coin comes mainly from people building complete Australian decimal collections, collectors interested in Queen Elizabeth II Australian coinage, and variety specialists. The 2004 date is also interesting because it sits within the modern era of Australian circulation coinage, making it relatively accessible to collectors while still offering opportunities to find better preserved examples. If you have one of these coins, avoid cleaning or polishing it. Cleaning can permanently damage the original surface and may actually reduce collector interest. Instead, store the coin in a proper holder and handle it by the edges whenever possible. If you believe your coin has a special variety or error, compare the details carefully with trusted numismatic references before attempting to sell it. So, what is the final verdict? The Australia 20 cents 2004 in very fine condition is collectible, but the standard circulated example is generally a modest value coin rather than a major rarity. Based on current online reference values, approximately $3.30, 0 to $3.90, 0 is a reasonable general range for a normal very fine example, while special varieties, errors, proof pieces, or unusually high-grade examples can command different prices. Remember, coin values change with market demand, and a catalog estimate is not a guaranteed selling price. The exact value of your coin depends on its variety, grade, originality, and what buyers are actually willing to pay. So before spending or selling your 2004 Australian 20-cent coin, take a close look at the date, Queen's portrait, lettering, platypus design, and especially the obverse details. You may discover that your coin is more interesting than it first appeared. Thanks for watching. Happy clarting. Like, share, subscribe.